calling this meeting of the Advisory Finance Committee to order. This is meeting number 9 of fiscal year '23. Today is October 6th, 2022. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts 2021, meetings conducted by hybrid means will be conducted in person and via remote access in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body may access these meetings in person or via remote means using the link posted. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by accessing the meeting in person, by in-person attendance only. Additionally, the meeting is being broadcast in real time via Westborough TV, Verizon Channel 28, or Charter Channel 192, and is being concurrently recorded. As soon as possible after the meeting, the recording will be posted on the Westborough TV YouTube site. So tonight, if you've all had a chance to read the minutes that were recently provided, we can go ahead with a motion. If you're uncomfortable and want to wait until Monday, we can do that. Okay, not hearing any objection. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Motion to approve. Beth, you're muted.
Okay, Rod.
Second.
Okay. Let's wait for Beth to come up. Beth, you're muted. I wonder if we can unmute her from here.
Shoot, it's been so long since I've entered it. There isn't one.
Beth? You're still on mute. We're trying to get you unmuted from here.
Looks like she's unmuted. It might be a microphone problem.
Can't hear you unless you speak.
Have the cat talk. What?
Could also dial in on your phone simultaneously.
All right, let me just.
It's an Andrew Bradley trick. Simulcast on
Sorry
the
about
phone
this.
with,
Let's,
Hi, I can hear you now.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Very loud and clear.
yes, loud and clear,
Yeah.
as was said.
Feel
Yes.
free to speak softly.
Okay. So, we're going to continue voting on those 14 warrant articles that,
We're gonna vote the minutes.
oh, sorry, we got
distracted.
distracted. My apologies.
We're waiting
So
for
can I
Beth.
have a motion?
We had it.
We
We're all
had
set.
it? Do we have a second?
Yes,
Okay.
we just need Beth to
All
say,
right. Beth, can
yea
you
or
start
nay.
on the voting of the minutes? Beth?
all right, we could start with Melanie. We
It's
don't
gonna
need
take
that
a
many
long
people
time
to
to go
vote
through
on the
the warrant.
minutes.
All right, let's circle back. Melanie, go ahead.
Ward, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Owen, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
Can you give us a thumbs up?
Beth, can you give us a thumbs up if you're approving the minutes? Okay.
Abstaining? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wow.
As can the library
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the police station called, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Okay.
7, 7, oh.
All right, we
One.
got to be serious. Come on. Okay, so
That's done.
we're going to take up the 14 warrant articles that we have before us. We're going to take up each article, and we're going to begin, I'm going to begin by asking for a motion, and that motion can be either to recommend or to not recommend. After that motion is made, we'll proceed with a discussion.
I have
Following
a point of
discussion-
order.
Yes, go ahead.
Don't we want to start with motions to recommend as we've done all the other articles, and then if it doesn't pass, do the other?
We could do that. I
Or
don't
you don't
care.
want me to make the motion?
You can make the motion. No, I don't, I wanted to, I want the
Okay,
discussion to
fine.
flow, if you don't mind.
I will make the motion.
We'll proceed with the discussion, then we'll go to a vote. If at the end of the vote, there is a minority opinion, those in the minority, if they wish, may be able to make a minority statement. And if you would write that out and get it to me before noon on Tuesday, I will make sure that that minority statement, if you wish, appears in the R&R. Okay, so let's begin with Article number 6, which is the fiscal year 23 school department budget adjustment. May I have a motion? Duh.
Sure.
Gene?
I make a motion to support Article 6 as written in the warrant.
Is there a second?
It's a money amount, so don't we have to call out the money?
It should be written as the money, yep, and for the purpose.
No.
So it's
It would say,
6,200, 628,833, and the purpose is increasing the FY 2023 school department budget. And it's a raise and appropriate.
to raise and appropriate. Is there a second? Okay. Discussion? Somebody asked that this be set aside for a discussion today. Rod?
You did. You said this is going to be set aside till Thursday.
It might have been you.
Yeah, it
I
was
don't
you.
remember.
No, that doesn't mean anybody else, it doesn't mean, shouldn't have
Go
a
ahead.
conversation.
Go ahead, you want to have a conversation? Go ahead.
No, I'm ready to go.
Rod?
I only have one question. Is there an opportunity to take this out of free cash as opposed to?
It is the policy, of the select board that operating funds, since this is a request for operating money, will not be taken from free cash. Free cash is supposed to be used for one-time only requirements. However, I will point out that when we look at Article 7, that is operating money. There's a small amount for one-time settlement, and then the balance is operating funds.
Only if they happen. That's a
Yes,
huge
only if they
difference.
happen. Yeah, so,
So there's an advantage to Article 7 being free cash, because if the other students don't happen, the money reverts to free cash versus being in the budget, which affects the baseline for next year's budget as well as not coming from free cash. So
And ends up in free cash.
if it isn't spent, ends up in free cash.
correct.
Yeah, so Rod, one of the issues of doing it with free cash is that you create a hole for next year too. Because these students are going to be back, so that's why.
Why aren't they budgeted? I guess I don't really understand. Why-
Because they didn't exist, the school department budgets very tightly in general. And if the students aren't in the system in September of last year, when they start the budgeting process, they don't account for them. They don't speculate on how many students they will have a year and a half from now when they set the budget.
These were not
In the
added
district.
as of town meeting in March of last year, so that's why they're not,
Okay.
because they could have amended their budget at least a few weeks before town meeting.
And then, do they do circuit breaker money in arrears? Is that the understanding?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
about a year and a half later.
And the circuit breaker goes to the general fund, I believe.
Yes, the circuit breaker does
Wow.
come to the general fund,
But what
but
is the purpose of circuit breaker money? Is it not for,
To help
Cir-
offset this
Offset.
expense.
Circuit breaker pays about 70% of your cost for students that go above a certain, this type of stuff. But it is calculated on a past, like a previous year.
In fact, we have no knowledge yet of what the circuit breaker for this year is.
But have you ever had circuit breaker money left over in years past?
Breaker
To my
money.
knowledge.
You
Melanie,
may,
it's hard to hear you.
I don't know that it's called leftover. So you get from the state a pot of money that goes into the general fund, and the school budget is a number that's based on having that. Do we, I would assume if you had a huge number of kids one year and for some reason a small number of kids, say 2 years later, you might get more than you actually had to spend in that particular year, but again, it's only 70% generally, so you're 30% in the hole to start with, so you'd have to have a pretty huge drop to actually turn positive.
And the other
You know what I
challenge, as
mean?
has been mentioned, is that the expense hits on the school side, but the money back comes into the general fund. So there's this understandable wink and nod, and that there's an offset, but the budget is the budget for the school.
It's the wink and nod that I'm having a problem with, but okay, thank you for
Rob,
explaining.
is your question answered?
Well, I guess my general comment is, this is unprecedented time where the taxpayers are going to get a tremendous increase this year. And the policy, the supposed policy, this may be the one year that we need to break it. And then, at next year's school budget, then this gets included. So my vote would be to take it from free cash.
So
Can I ask a
But
question
that's
about
why
that?
You've got to, hang on a second.
Okay.
it's not a votable thing.
Yeah. it's
No,
not-
my
it's-
opinion, not a vote,
Yeah,
my opinion.
okay, all right.
In the actual fiscal '23 budget, we started with taking $1 million out of free cash, and it walked its way back. I think somewhere around 500 or 600,000 was agreed upon. And to do that, then they calculate that so much will be the year after and the year after to sort of smooth the transition. I don't think they seem to have that enthusiasm for doing that this time of year. I wish they had left it at $1 million, frankly, and not backed it down as, we made other progress, because you can see there's these other things now that have moved it back up. And so that if we had just left it at $1 million, it would be covering, in essence, some of these things.
Are you talking about free cash?
What's that?
The million you're referring to,
Yes.
what million is that?
There was $1 million from free cash taken originally in the budget proposal, and as we made savings, it walked its way back to,
Right.
I think, somewhere in the 500s.
It was originally intended to offset the tax increase, help
Yeah,
offset
it
the
was to
tax
smooth
increase.
it.
So one option, at the annual meeting would have been to say, hey, no, we wanted to leave that here as a
Absolutely,
reserve, and maybe we should remember that in the future,
yes, we
I
should,
think.
all right.
But I don't think we should let that screw up our decision to support the schools on something that they are mandated to pay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument about the bill having to be paid. The discussion is,
Where?
what's the best way to do it?
Right.
And, you make your best effort at a decision based on the information you have at hand.
So, for
And
instance-
So this is why this proposal is written the way it is.
If this didn't pass as a raise and appropriate, Rod could make a motion to
To go for,
to approve it out of free cash. And that, all we're saying is that's our recommendation to town meeting.
right.
And someone would have to make that motion at town meeting and have that pass versus the other two, so
We
it
could
can,
amend
that's
our
the way
motion
you
to
could
say
do
we
that. You
support-
I'm sorry, wait,
We could amend our motion to say we support this bill and we think the money should come from free cash because of the extraordinary circumstance.
well, look, we can do that, but we have to vote, we have a motion on the floor now to recommend that this article be passed with the amounts in it as indicated.
Mm-hmm.
And if that passes, then there's no longer any discussion. Then if there is another motion to use free cash, it has to happen on the town floor, on the town
Well,
meeting.
we could amend.
Although someone could make a minority statement,
You,
like
correct,
Rod could write something that could
Correct.
be next to that, say, suggesting it.
yeah.
I mean, that's perfectly fine too.
Or if we opposed it now, we could take another motion to do it from.
If it was voted down,
Right.
then we could ask for another, we could. you
We
could-
can amend the motion before we vote.
He could,
He could, but then we have to vote on his motion.
which is fine.
But,
You
that
vote
doesn't
on the
change the motion
You
that's
vote
in the
on the motion.
warrant, so what's the point?
Right.
Why would we vote on something that's not in the warrant?
Because
So-
you can make a recommendation that town meeting, you could say
Consider.
doesn't pass this, you could make a recommendation that town meeting votes to use free cash for this article, I guess, if that's what everybody wanted to do.
Because all we're doing is voting to recommend something.
That's correct.
We're just a recommendation. It's
Strongly
But, okay,
worded
but were we to
recommendation.
turn this down for the reason that we don't like where the source is, we screw the schools.
We
Same
haven't
thing.
gotten to that point yet,
Yeah.
Beth. We haven't
Okay.
voted to not
Right.
do it.
Okay, I'm just,
So we have a choice. Rod, you can make a motion, which we will have to vote on first before we go back and vote on Jean's motion. If your motion passes, right, then that changes our recommendation. If your motion doesn't pass, then we'll go back and vote on Jean's motion, and if his motion passes, that will be our recommendation. If it does not pass, then anyone is
Free to make another
free to
motion.
make another motion upon which we will vote. So,
I'm prepared to make a motion that we approve Article 6, but that the money come from free cash instead of raise and appropriate.
okay, is there a second for that motion? If there's no second, no motion.
That's fine.
All right, let's move on.
Let's
Any
vote.
other discussion about this article? We're all set to vote?
I am.
Okay.
Everybody else?
Lundberg, yes.
Ford, no.
Bradley, yes?
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, no.
Moretti, yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2.
Okay, Article 7. Again, this is a request for use of free cash to pay for these particular students that we're having to pay out of district tuition on. Is there a motion on this article?
I move the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $300,519 for the purpose of funding the FY 2023 school department specialized service expenses, inclusive of, as written in the warrant.
Bradley, second.
Okay, we have a second. Discussion?
Bradley, a second?
Any discussion? The point that I was making before that I wanted to bring up was responded to, so I'm okay. My question is answered. We're ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Lundberg, yes.
Ford, no.
Bradley, yes?
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
Is 7-1.
Okay, moving on to Article 8, Police Department budget. We do not have a number for the police department's contract, so we're going to pass over that right now. And we'll probably end up, if that's resolved, we'll probably end up dealing with it at the town meeting. Okay. Next article is Article 12, the ambulance replacement.
I think Rod had a question.
May I have a motion?
So I was the one who asked for a discussion, but we can have, do you want to have a motion first?
You open the motion, you make the motion, then you open the discussion.
Okay.
Did we do Assabet the last time?
Yes, we passed the Assabet one.
Okay.
Okay, so may I have a motion on this
I
ambulance request?
move that the town vote to transfer from ambulance receipts reserve sum, the sum of $357,000, for the purpose of this article.
Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion?
So I was the one who asked for a discussion on this, and I think it's in two parts. Again, I'm very concerned about spending money that'll affect the taxpayers. In this year, this is something that's been moved up, and I understand the supply chain issues. But I also think, and one of the Board of Selectmen said, we're using this October meeting to pass too many of these types of articles, and they should be at the regular town meeting when we have the full context of what needs to be spent and what can be prioritized.
Just to be clear, this is not coming out of raise and appropriate, so
Yeah.
it does not affect the taxes. It comes from ambulance receipts.
Yeah, this is,
So the ambulances are actually revenue generators for the town,
Huge
a
record.
portion of which ends up in the ambulance receipt. And I'm not sure what the breakdown is, but a portion of it ends up in the ambulance receipts, which allows them to fund the operations of the ambulance without coming out of free cash or R&A or anything else. So,
Thank you.
And I think that we're in a time when those ambulance wheels are being run off of them. So I think they pulled it up, almost because they're worried. Because of supply chain, the lead time is so long now, the one that we have could very well break down, and we don't have like backup and parts and those sorts of things. So I think that's why they moved it up.
Yeah. This is actually part of a very well thought out initiative to have a cycle of essentially originally 12 years, thinking each ambulance would be be the newest for 3 going through the cycle, and that the 4th one would actually be the spare in case one of the ambulances went out of commission, because they actually use that many potentially at one time. And they need to allow for breakdown.
any other comments? Rob?
No, my only other concern would be that be voted at the Springtown meeting as opposed to the fall one.
Okay.
Things happen. I mean, we try to do that, but that's really on the selectmen and on what they know at the time. And it's not unusual that a few things slip through.
I don't know if it's a slip through. I think it's the longer lead time that they're facing because
But they acknowledged it was appropriate to do it now. Oh, yeah.
yeah, because this was on the plan for next spring, but you can order it now. You might have it in the time frame. We probably would have thought we'd had it if we ordered it next spring, maybe, or maybe even later, but
Very delayed.
Yeah.
I do agree that it's, and Andrew's our capital committee, that they're gonna have to, when they look at the stuff this year, think, about these lead times, because it affects, it's obviously, it's starting to, we seem to have a lot of these articles where the lead time's changing the philosophy.
DPW in particular, they have a lot of heavy metal that they need to
Any-
order.
I'm sure it's police cars, yeah.
Right.
Any equipment? I mean, Rod, I do share your concern, and I share the selectmen's concern about, we seem to be getting a lot pushed into the special town meeting. Some of it's understandable. Some of it has time schedules attached to it. Some of it concerns me because it seems rushed and not enough information gets developed, and to allow us to make decisions with the best, possible information that we could have. But that's the way it is sometimes. Yes, Mark?
But a counterpoint is we're running a $130 million corporation, for lack of a better word, where the people that have are allowed to make decisions on voting only meet twice a year, because a lot of things by statute require town meeting vote. So it's probably impractical in this day and age not to have a special town meeting that's somewhat larger than maybe they were 30 years ago or 20 years ago. And especially in a complex time such as this, where things change quicker and you know, all sorts of reasons. But your point is well taken. It's just that there are certain things that you got to do at town meeting.
Yeah, no, my only concern, and then I'll stop, is just to be taken in context of what, everything else that needs to be done, and the people who waited to do it under the regular cycle that might be
Right.
competing for the same
Agreed.
dollars.
That's very fair.
But
To
they're
look
not.
at everything as a whole.
But that's also part of what we do. So when we developed a message for this town meeting, we could bring the full context in, so that we put it in the scope of the context of all of the things that are on this list or that list, or capital equipment needs or infrastructure needs. We have that capability to do it. So just because we're voting on it now, doesn't mean that that information won't get out to the town.
Yeah, it seems like if we're moving some of these things up a year, does that mean that we shouldn't do as much in the spring, or are we just gonna add more there? Which is a good point that you're making. Because, you know, this should have been the spring thing, so does it get backfilled, or is it just, we're doing it sooner and not backfilling it? It's a different question. Interesting.
Well,
Okay.
given that we have a
Yes.
cycle, we're expecting the next ambulance to come up in about 3 years. The question is, will it come up in 2.5, 3, or 3.5? So we have a little bit of time on this particular can to figure out what is the appropriate timeline.
Right, well, also, the, you know, population and needs are changing, so,
And I
It-
don't think
yeah.
we fully know what, those ambulances are generating in income. I think it's a lot more than it used to be a couple of years ago.
well, they tell us,
Certainly running.
they tell us every year in the,
Yeah.
when we get our budget documents, what they brought in, so we can see that
And it's a
soon.
lot.
They're expensive to run, so yeah, that's why they charge a lot too.
You know, personally, I'm willing to have more flexibility when it comes to public safety equipment, because of the consequences of not having it versus, let's say, you know, a new tractor trailer for the DPW. So, I think you have to consider all the aspects of the request. Okay, are we ready to, any further discussion on this? Ready to vote? Okay,
Lundberg, yes?
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Tolman, yes.
Leslie, yes?
McMahon, yes?
Shafford, yes.
Moretti, yes. Okay, the next article is Article 13, the catch basin cleaner attachment for the DPW. May I have a motion on this article? Who requested that we discuss it? Ron? Okay, may I have a motion on this article?
Somebody did, somebody wanted a discussion?
Yeah, well, we have to have a motion first.
I move to recommend the town vote to accept the transfer of funds in the amount of, from free cash, the sum of $168,000 for the purposes of the catch basin cleaner attachment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Ron?
So I guess my question is similar. How is this being paid for?
Free cash?
Free cash.
Capital equipment, free cash.
Yeah.
This one's the one to ask, why is this coming up now versus in the spring?
Well, we know that, I mean. when
Says
we
it right in the
discuss-
article.
Well, yeah, but when we discussed this when he was here, at the spring, this was brought up, but there was insufficient funds, so they put it off till now. This wasn't intended for next spring, it was intended for last spring, and with the escalation of cost of equipment, they can't change the amount in the article by more than 10% at that point, and bought whatever, one part of it, but not this part. And when we met as a group before town meeting, as an AFC, Chris came and told us that's what he was doing, so we are aware of that.
I think you missed that meeting, Beth. I think you were.
Probably.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll proceed to a vote. Beth?
Lumber, yes.
Ford, no.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, no.
Moretti, yes.
All right, we have a 6-2.
Again, if somebody wants to put a minority statement in, please get it to me by Monday. Tuesday, sorry.
Monday's probably a better goal.
Yeah, no, it's not. Tuesday morning's fine, I can handle that.
Okay.
It's- yeah. Okay, next item is the water system improvement. It's Article 14, and it's proposed by the DPW. May I have a motion, please? That's cat got your tongues, or what?
Hey, well, you set up last, whatever, Monday with one person reading all the motions. We just, we're relaxing on that.
I'm doing this deliberately.
Okay,
Go ahead.
motion to recommend the town vote to transfer, I don't like from available funds. Does that mean free cash?
So this one, there were two potential sources of it.
Yep.
One was a reserve fund
Water
that may or
reserve?
may not have enough money in it, and if not, it was coming from free cash.
Do we know what the motion is from the town?
We probably don't know the
We
motion
don't.
yet,
We do not know
so
yet.
you could,
So,
i-
Maybe
if
we
it
could
matters
also-
to you whether it came from this reserve fund or free cash, then we should wait. If it doesn't, or you're not gonna support it either way, or you're gonna support it either way, then it wouldn't matter.
You look pensive, Beth. You have a.
yeah, well, it's for another study. Studies just seem so crazy expensive to me. But I don't happen to want, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances in my water. So I'm kind of like, am I stuck because I want clean water, which is hugely important? But I'm also torn by I'd like to know where the money's coming from. But it sounds like this is not a raise and appropriate, so it's not hitting the tax levy, it's just hitting the budget.
You're right.
I
Any
can
other
look,
comments?
yeah, I'll look up when they came and discussed this.
Yeah.
Which article is this number?
14.
14?
Oh, it wasn't
Hope
14
it was-
back
yeah.
then. It wasn't 14 back then.
Okay.
Back then, it was Article 8. Okay, so they were requesting funds for detailed engineering design phase for removing PFAS at the Oak Street Water Treatment Plant. One of the wells at Oak Street has PFAS above the allowed level and was taken offline. They're working interactively with Mass DEP. They studied and got $550 for an estimate for design. Construction in the future will be about $6 million. Why now versus March? Wells are shut down and want capability, funding for construction piece, and we are pursuing state revolving fund money, e.g. 0% loan and/or principal forgiveness for the actual construction. Want to get going while the opportunity exists, but that fund will not pay for design. So they need a design, and then they hope to come back, or
And
hope
get a
to apply
grant.
for grants or whatever. And then people had all sorts of questions. And I guess it turns out this was an 11% design cost, which is somewhat typical, 10 to 12%. So
Okay, then I would support it because the reality is this stuff just takes time from the time you start, and if there's grants out there, being ready is good.
So I don't believe we have an actual motion because the motion was, I vote to approve. I don't like this source.
Sorry,
So,
that was me.
You want
so,
I move to that I don't like this source.
Okay, because the available funds just stopped me because that wasn't our language.
I know.
I move to recommend the town vote to fund this article for 550,000 method to be determined at town meeting floor where we may revote it, but.
All right, that's a convoluted motion
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, sorry. All right, I move to recommend the town
So
vote to
let's
transfer.
try. If somebody's willing to help out with the motion,
I move to vote that the town transfer 550,000 for the purpose of this article.
But we have to state a source, like that's, so at this point, we recommend the free cash, and the reality is if the motion is that if they're planning to bring a motion that isn't from free cash, we can revote amongst ourselves and say whether we approve of the new source.
That's a good
But
idea.
at the moment, we've got nothing. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of possibilities out there, and they're looking for recommendation.
so let's do it
And
from free
I
cash. Are you good with that, Beth?
recommend the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $550,000 for the purpose of this article.
That
Bradley,
makes more
second.
sense. All right, we have a second.
Bradley,
Any
I
more
don't like that.
discussion since we've gotten out of bounds here? Any further discussion?
I just think that makes sense. If they have the funds in the other and they want to make a thing, we can revote, or it doesn't really matter, it's just a recommendation anyway. And I think that puts our little token in that if it isn't some other available source, that, like, it doesn't turn into something else. So
Okay.
I think the free cash was a good idea.
My only comment, and I've talked to Chris a little bit, I think there's a more cost-effective way to complete the design work, and I don't think we need to spend that amount of money now. But it
Well,
would
there's
take him
nothing
coming.
that says we have to spend that amount of money.
We have to set it aside.
If we have to appropriate it, but if the town meeting has to appropriate it.
Okay.
But if in fact it can be done more cheaply, if that's the right word, then
Inexpensively.
that, the balance
Okay.
remaining would revert back to wherever the original source was, in this case, free cash.
Are you as liaison?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you're in the room when it's happened, when this is being discussed. So, yeah, to the point, the article says 550, we have to vote on what the article's gonna be, unless they're gonna change the motion on town floor. But
So you, as the liaison, might be in a good position to
Haggle.
influence some of the decision making. How's that? Arm wrestle with. Okay, any other discussion? Let's go for a vote, please. Beth?
Lundberg, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
800.
800. Okay, moving on, the next article is Article 16, the,
15.
15.
sorry, 15, library, yeah, wrong page, library construction and renovation. May I have a motion, please?
I'd be honored to move this as the liaison to the Library Building Committee. I recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 15 to, I would say in this case, borrow from available funds. Well, I don't know, it should be appropriate, borrow from available funds $36,698,556 to fund the construction, renovation, and expansion of the Westborough Public Library as written in the warrant.
Okay,
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a second. Discussion.
I love libraries, and I'm against this particular article because I think we don't know what a library of the future is going to be. And this seems like really expensive for, and not knowing if we're going to get the library we need for 50, like, our libraries last a long time. And I feel like libraries are in huge transition right now, from books to electronics to meeting spaces. And I don't know that and this is a very expensive building. And I don't know that we're gonna get what we want for 50 years.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
I'll
just
comment.
a reminder that there's about a $20 million cost to this town eventually if we choose to keep that building up and running. in whatever capacity it needs. It will need new windows, it will need ADA, it will need sprinklers. So there's 20 million-ish. I think there's a restated amount of about 18 million. But table stakes just as a cost to keep that building open if that's something important. I think that the town has 7 libraries, and I think that they work well because of proximity. And I think that there's an opportunity for having a library project like this that keeps the 7 that we have and adds potentially
Andrew,
an 8th
what
one.
7 libraries are you talking
Ben,
about?
let him finish his thought, please.
We have 6 in the schools and 1 here.
Okay.
7 libraries.
Yeah,
So, and I think that they work well for proximity. Libraries are proximate, people go to them. And I think that if we're looking at a future that has another site with a senior center, or a multi-generation center, whatever we're talking about it, I think that there's a place for an 8th location to support library needs, and libraries are hugely efficient and effective, and I love them. But it's about putting the need where the people are, and I think that there's an opportunity not to spend $35 million minus $9 million on this particular design when we could have like an opportunity for another library that would integrate well with other future projects.
I also think that, my concern is 36 million is a huge price tag, minus the 9. I think that when you open up that building, they don't necessarily know what
She
they're
told
gonna
us where it's
have
coming from,
behind
they
those
could
walls,
revote it.
they're older walls, and you're gonna have to bring things up to compliance. Does that 36 suddenly become,
Oh,
42?
state.
And so you vote, and then I worry that we get into it and they go, well, it's voted for, so we gotta keep paying until, it just feels like there's some hidden costs there that aren't being explored. And I love libraries too. Just gonna talk about it.
go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm supportive of this article for several reasons. I think libraries are super important to having a democracy. I think you need a vibrant library. It's where everybody can get information. I think it serves the community over a wide range of ages. The other 6 libraries serve kids between roughly 6 and 18 years old, maybe a few preschoolers. I think that as a member of the LBC, I've seen the selection process of both the architect, construction manager, and OPM. They've had work together actually on the Shrewsbury Library, did a good job on that. Some of them have worked on fails successfully, so I think we have a good team of professionals in place. And I think from a financial perspective, since I firmly believe we need to keep the library going, I'm in favor of spending sort of, if you will, 27 million versus 18 million to just sort of do the renovation work. And I think that's because I think by doing it this way, you have a building that's more flexible and able to do the 50 years versus I think you'll end up with a little bit less doing it the other way. And so I think there's financial and other good reasons to do it this way.
I mean, I just want to echo what Walt said. I was skeptical of this article when I first started hearing about it. But it is, my belief is that a library for a town isn't a want, it's a need. And it's sort of become clear to me that the decision to keep the library downtown is well thought out. And so, we're either going to spend 18, and I don't believe the 18 number, I think that's going to escalate quickly, because that is where you run into the renovation costs escalate quickly, to have, to keep the library going as is, which we know does not work, or we're going to spend a little bit more for a library that, a committee has spent a long time thinking about what will work. And I think it's in the best interest of the town to spend a little bit more money now to get a library that will work and will work for a long time in the future. I understand what you're saying about, there may be an opportunity sometime in the future for another location. And that may be, but, some of the things that are being designed into this facility might mean that that facility is less expensive, doesn't need to be as big, doesn't need as many meeting rooms, et cetera. And it's not designed, it's not in front of us, so, so for that reason, I've completely flipped and do support this.
Not to take away from anybody else's point, but just for historical reference, right now, Hastings is looking at spending, Hastings was being discussed. That's sprinklers, that's ADA, that's an impressive gutting of that building. That's windows, but obviously not windows like this. It's also a newer building, so this is not a perfect parallel, but that's about a $6 million project. I'd also say historically also, taking an existing building and doing some very significant internal changes. We had the Armstrong building about 4 years ago, and that was about a $20 million project. And that was not unlike what's happening here. There's a lot of tearing out walls, putting in new things, building up some new stuff, pulling out trailers. So that and mind you, that was 4 years ago, and we know everything's gotten more expensive. So it is absolutely fair to say that 18 million is a questionable amount. I would argue there's reasons to say that that's overly concerned, because it was an estimate put together by a group that has an interest in steering us towards the $27 million project. But that is neither here nor there to say definitively that anybody's wrong about these perspectives. But I think that 20 million is a fair placeholder given historical activity and given comparables. And again, not to take away from anybody's perspectives, but just for context.
Just one small point is when I think the Hastings project is about 13 million in total.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, the 6
Not
million was for
6,
just
so
part of
that's,
it. You're right.
that's closer to
That's
this
below.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you for that correction.
And we'll have a chance to talk about that later.
Yep.
Rod?
So, as you know, I've followed this fairly closely, and I have several concerns. One is it's an extremely small lot that the library is sitting on, and the fact that we have to take down 10,000 square feet to build 20,000 square feet, in my mind, is not a cost-effective solution. I think the price tag is ballooned. I don't think the architect and OPM have been given a budget to work to, and subsequently the budget that's been established, I think, is not appropriate. So my general feeling is the library is too big and too costly.
So I'm trying to look at this from two perspectives. First is the cost perspective. And again, we're dealing in round numbers right now. Okay. So when I look at it, we have a $35 million proposed project. We take off the 9.4 for the grant from the state. Then we add back on 12 million in borrowing cost. And we've got a project that's, rough numbers, $37.5 million. When all is settled, we might see a low impact on the taxes, 180, a high impact at one time, 312, and then an average impact over the balance of the loan of $245. Right now, we cannot determine what our borrowing schedule is going to be, because we don't have a funding schedule. And until we get the funding schedule, the finance director cannot go forward with working through a borrowing schedule to determine whether we're going to begin with short-term borrowing or use some of the funds from the state, or we're going to move, and when we're going to move to a long-term borrowing. In order to get that funding schedule, we need a design agreement. And until we get that design agreement, the borrowing schedule is going to have to sit in abeyance. So the best numbers we have today, all the numbers we're talking about, impact on taxes and so forth, are purely estimates until we understand how much we're going to borrow and when. When I think about Plan B, I was disappointed in the way it came forward, As Andrew said, it was done by the architect. We didn't hire someone to actually go out and do a full cost basis for a Plan B. But I'm gonna stay with the 18 million for a moment, and I'm wondering if we're not spending too much money in a new project to chase $9 million from the state. We're willing to spend 37 million. Doesn't seem to me like a good investment.
Other than
Well,
your interest would also have to be added to
It's
the
gonna be added,
18.
yeah, I'm not.
If
I'm
you
not-
want to do
no, I'm
apples
staying
and
with the-
apples.
I'm staying with the 18 million. I'm not
Right, so
arguing.
then stay with 27 million.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, we will have to pay cost. I'm not making a determination in my mind yet whether we should go with the new one or a renovated one. This is my thought process. That's all I'm going through right now. The second issue I start thinking about is the merits of the project. And the question I keep asking myself is, what problem does it solve for the town? What problem does a new library solve for the town of Westborough? And again, I go back to the issue that I raised in the past, need versus want, need versus nice to have. And I have some concerns about that. I cannot, in my mind, justify this project when I think about all of the other issues that the town is facing, from infrastructure, and, we've been through this, infrastructure to new senior center, to new this, to new that. Now, those haven't been proposed yet, okay? So we don't know if they're ever gonna come on stream. But I have to, again, as my decision-making process works, I'm trying to put it in a broader context. I happen to also understand, and, well, we have to be prepared as a committee to deal with this. Apparently, there may be a citizens initiative at the town meeting to use free cash, in fact, all our free cash, toward this project. If that comes up, to me, that's fiscally irresponsible, but. So, when I think about this from a cost perspective, when I think about it from a
Wait,
merits of the.
so somebody's gonna propose
May-
that we use all of our free cash.
That's not gonna
I
happen.
know, but
It's not gonna happen. I don't believe that would be voted.
Anybody can propose anything.
Anything.
Yeah,
I know.
so that's a bit off topic.
Yeah.
So, from my perspective, when I look at it in terms of project cost and what need does it solve, I can't come down in favor on this. I think the timing is just, I feel bad because I recognize the importance of libraries. They play a huge role in a community. Granted, people aren't gonna move here because we have a new library, but they're important, but I think the timing on this one is just awful. And I know people have put a huge amount of work into this thing.
Yeah, work and money, and I think that to me is the hardest group to look at are the folks who've done so much work fundraising for this.
Yep.
Helping to pay for design, helping to pay for a bunch of things. People have given tons of sweat equity to this, and I get it, because I love the library as well. It's a tough group to say, it's a tough group to have to say no to, but sunk cost, from an economic perspective, it's a sunk cost. We have to look at, I think, what's rational and reasonable now, and unfortunately, yeah.
I just want to make one comment, and then I agree that the committee has worked very hard. They've been very transparent. They have a good group, to Walter's credit. My recommendations, and this is just me talking, is that I think we need to go ahead with something at the library. There's sorely needed something to be done. That being said, I would support a budget of approximately $27 million with the option that you spend the 18 for the renovation, or you go for the grant and raise the money from some other source, ARPA, whatever, and then hold the design and construction team accountable to deliver a more cost-effective library solution.
Yeah, I think, I think to a certain extent, and I want to choose my words carefully, I think we're almost being held hostage to that grant. I think that somehow short circuits the decision-making process, because I think if we had the chance to really sit down and look at this a little more closely, that we would probably come up with a way to make it happen. That, again, that's just my personal perspective on it. But, I applaud, I really do applaud the folks from the library for the work they put into this. This has been a multi-year project for them, interrupted, for the last 3 years by COVID. And I just feel awful about it, but I just think the timing is
So,
what it is.
I did have a correspondence with the MBLC a few months ago in terms of the next round of funding, and it's obviously unsure in what percentage they would have and whether the library would get it, but they said it's potentially available as early as 2025, which is much sooner than some of the other dates we've been given.
Well, we would have to get something, again, something official from them with that, and I'm, based on what I've read. I've looked at the library provided us with the grant. You've all had a chance to look at that. I've looked at the disbursement. Everything seems to be the way it should be. It's just the timing is so awful. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents. I promise to keep my soliloquy short today, and I will. Did you time me? Thank you. Any other comments about this project, please? This is a biggie. We need to make sure we get it fully and fairly discussed. That's a financial term, in case you haven't heard it, biggie.
Thanks.
This is an important one, and I want to be sure that we're all going to be comfortable in how we vote on this. And again, this is a recommendation. The town meeting is where the action is going to take place on whether or not this is approved. And both sides have, I think, made compelling arguments for their position.
I suggest we vote.
Okay,
and
let's
we
move
can
to a vote.
re-vote if
Thank
we
you.
have to.
Okay. Beth?
Blumberg, no.
Ford, no.
Bradley, no?
Dolan, no.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes?
Shafford, no.
Moretti, no.
Okay, so the motion doesn't carry, so
So-
someone should make another motion if they want.
Why don't we turn it positive?
The motion doesn't carry.
Right.
That's
But
right.
we
Because
want to turn it
because it's
something-
2 to 6
Yeah.
to 0.
Right.
So
Our
it's
recommendation
as if
would
the
be-
motion didn't happen.
Our recommendation would be that this article not be voted in the affirmative by the town
Yeah,
meeting.
someone could make a motion to defeat
I
it
make a
if they so
motion
liked it.
that we recommend the town not vote to support the library at this time.
I think you should make, if you wanted to make a motion, our recommendation has to be on this article, so it would be to defeat the article if you
Yeah,
don't want to fund the money right now.
Historically, the vote has
You
been,
might as well call it what it is and
Vote
not
to
try
defeat the
and
article.
whitewash it.
Okay, I move that the AFC recommend the town defeat this article.
Bradley, second.
Okay.
Discussion?
Yes. I just hope that if the town so votes that everybody here who's talking about doing the renovations will actually support that, because I'm a little skeptical about that. If we came in with a $15 million renovation or a $20 million renovation, that the attitude would be any different, but that's just me.
Well, personally, Walter, if there's a recommendation for renovation, I would support it.
Okay, good to hear.
So as long as it's cost effective, I would support it, I really would.
Okay.
Because I think, yeah, okay, let's let it go with that.
Yeah. I think we do need to write something nice, because I think we heard, you know, I think we heard very consistently that we support the concept of libraries. We appreciate how much work the library committees have done and put into this, but the timing is really bad.
Well, that could be part of Mike's message in the.
That's what I'm
verbally.
saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I plan on writing a
Are you gonna write a minority?
minority
Okay.
statement on it, but I'm not gonna speak for you.
Well, you will all have an opportunity to review the message on Sunday evening or Monday and get back to me on Monday night when we meet again.
Okay.
I think the message this year has got to be frank, to use a diplomatic term.
Lunch?
Let's not wordsmith, let's vote.
Yeah.
We're already gonna be here till
Off topic.
12, so.
We did, Blumberg, yes.
This is to be, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Or yes.
Bradley, yes.
Leslie, no.
McMahon, no?
Shafford, yes.
Already, yes.
Okay, so that passes by
6-6.
6-2-0.
And you're gonna get me a statement.
You bet on it.
Okay, moving on. Next article is the dimensional zoning for the library.
I recommend the town
Vote to
You making a
defeat.
motion, Beth?
vote to
I,
that this isn't needed, so I mean, we don't have Passover anymore, though.
no,
It is needed.
it's
It
only
passes.
needed if it doesn't pass, so I
If it
would make a
doesn't
motion, and I think everybody here should probably support it, that if the town so voted to do that project, this is a necessary element to that project, and do you really want to prevent that project by this technicality? It doesn't make sense. And so,
Okay.
I think this one is more just a legal argument, not a funding. And like you said, if the town votes against the library, this one won't come up. And if they do, then this one's needed. So I think
There's no
it's,
point in, I think this is something that we should support, because if the town meeting so desires and votes in favor of the project, this needs to be taken care of, and so,
Right.
okay?
So
So,
I'm willing to move, we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of the article as written in the warrant.
is there a second?
There's no money involved in this one.
There's no money involved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion?
Only that we're gonna caveat that our approval of this is contingent upon the passage, because, you know, if it doesn't, then we say no to this. I guess we're looking to give a recommendation. It seems like our recommendation is, yes, we should change the envelope, or.
It doesn't
put
change the
one on.
envelope, it allows the use of the,
Sure.
Is this
Municipal
envelope
property.
different than than a normal M1 building envelope would be? Because I heard from people that the adjacent building is very concerned, and they think they're gonna have to close for the year while this is being constructed.
What adjacent building?
a church.
The church, the congregational
Yeah.
church.
Isn't enough distance between?
The envelope is really the property, I believe. I mean, they showed us the picture of
Yeah.
it, and it's,
I mean, because I'm comfortable with it being the property, but I was really surprised that I was hearing feedback that this was gonna really disrupt.
it will
neighbor.
disrupt the church for a period of time because half their parking lot will be used.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not considered part of the envelope?
I don't, do you know, Maureen? No, the envelope, this is more, Westborough has a weird bylaw that in order for municipal property to be used for a town building, or whatever this is zoned exactly, the town has to agree that we're using it for this purpose.
But I thought when we did the school, we had to even zone the portion that was gonna be where the trucks were sitting. That, where, everything had to be in the lot.
This went to the planning board, so I'm going to yield to their expertise, and it passed the planning board with a recommendation, so.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that you can't grant, the planning board can't grant the use of the other adjacent lot, so that,
Gotcha.
as I understand it, the town's under negotiation with the church right now to be able to utilize their lot. But
Maybe that's what it is
I-
that it's not included in the lot because they're looking to actually borrow, purchase, rent that space for the year or the time being.
I will say, we went out of our way to support an abutter who lives behind the building and made an adjustment to this envelope.
And I am very gracious. However, I'm still concerned that they could encroach on my property, but anyhow. At some point, we'll see a logistics plan from the construction manager.
We want to go back
Okay.
to the other one next, maybe? Let's finish
So
this
do we
one.
need a vote on this?
Yes.
So
Okay,
if I
we
may,
ready to vote?
just one more
Yes.
thought about a procedural alternative. Since we voted to recommend we reject the other article, I suspect we should vote to recommend to reject this because it's consistent with what we are saying with the other article. And if, at the time, we could tell John, if at the time the other article passes, we re-vote on the town floor. That
I
way, at
like
least
that.
our recommendation to the town is consistent. Not project, not the envelope change.
I like that.
One's dimensional zoning, one has nothing to do really with.
But it puts it on the books for no purpose.
Well, the article won't come up if it fails, so.
Well, fair enough, but our recommendation, if we're gonna talk about our recommendation to the people, our recommendation 6.2 is that we don't move ahead with the project.
Yeah.
So then I think a fairer thing to do would be not to vote it now and vote it at town meeting,
We could do that
whether
as
you
well.
have to or not,
Yep.
because you will have in the book that you're against it, but you may be in favor of it then, I think.
Right.
Sure, I think that makes more sense than voting to approve this.
Does everybody understand
And
what
we
we're
could,
driving at?
so the motion,
It has
if,
to be withdrawn.
We'll take a vote at town meeting floor, that's all we have to put in the
So
book.
you would have to withdraw your motion, Beth.
I
It's
withdraw my
Walt-
motion very happily.
It's Walt's motion.
it's my motion.
Thank you.
Did she just
Sakes.
withdraw Walt's motion?
No, I withdrew mine.
It's up
So-
to you. You
so
can
we-
withdraw your motion.
We could amend the motion to be, we'll take a vote, well, we don't have to have a motion. I
Yeah, you just have to
my
withdraw your
That's
motion.
it.
With the idea that we will vote on town floor.
Fair enough. Thank you. Okay. We can go back to the article on the water system improvement with the PFAS. I've had some texting correspondence with the town manager, and she and the financial director are willing to join us now to
Like live? Through the miracle of Westborough TV?
TV
Somebody's
to,
watching?
Holy smokes.
because
Is that
Library
allowed?
director came in
she
person.
made it, she said the PFAS article is not now coming from free cash. It's either coming from the stabilization or retained earnings. And I think it would be beneficial to us to have their comments. So let me
So we're revising the article, is that what we're saying?
Well, we're gonna
No.
re-vote on the recommendation.
Well, we could,
Because of the.
we can if you
We're gonna
like
open it
their
again.
information, someone can make a motion, because we could really re-vote any of these
Yep.
at town
At
meeting
any
or any
time.
other time.
Something,
What?
breaking news.
Yeah.
Where's the crawl? Break out the breaking news crawl.
Are they coming in through there, or should,
They're gonna
or
come
should
in
we
through.
keep going and then they can join us when they
Yeah,
can?
they can join us when they come in. Hang on a minute.
Can we keep going till they get here?
Yeah, that's the plan, he just has to finish
Oh, okay.
writing back. The next article would be
18,
18, if
Ruggles
people
Street.
wanna look at it.
I was the one who wanted to talk about it.
Leah? Hi, can you join us? Can you join us?
Where is 0 Ruggles Street?
Right next to One Ruggles?
No, it's actually not, it's about, it,
It's near the Daybreak property.
yeah, what's that name of that L-shaped street. It's right next to Eli Whitney.
Green.
Breen, yeah. So you know the fake driveway? It looks like it should go into the woods?
Yeah.
It's there. It's adjacent to the property we just purchased. And
Okay,
off
can
Eli Whitney.
let me call a halt here for a moment, please. We have the financial director on the phone. We're gonna hold her next to a microphone because they don't have access to the link. And she is going to walk us through this issue on the PFAS article.
Okay.
Leah?
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so basically, if you remember, we had two articles in the beginning. And they were both for $550,000. And one of them was coming out of water retained earnings, and the other one was coming out of the stabilization account, because we weren't sure which funding source we were going to be able to access by the time town meeting came, because we were getting mitigation money to go into the stabilization fund. And so what we did, in order to make it cleaner, which obviously has made it more confusing for you guys, is the fact that we said we're going to put it in one article and just say available fund. So by the time we got to town meeting, we would either be able to vote it from the stabilization fund if we got the money in, or we'd vote it from the water retained earnings if we didn't get those monies in. So there's no impact to the taxes. It's just whether or not we're taking it from retained earnings or from the stabilization fund, but not free cash.
But if it is from water retained earnings, it's an impact on the water users.
No, water retained earnings is kind of like free cash for the water department.
Oh,
Profit.
okay. It's a free
Profit.
cash equivalent of water. Okay.
Right.
It's called retained earnings in enterprise funds, but it's water retained earnings. So it's basically, for lack of a better word, free cash for the water enterprise fund. So it won't affect the rates. Obviously, if and when we go forward with the millions of dollars, that would eventually affect the rates. But for the design, it will not affect the rates because it's from water retained earnings.
And Leah, could you repeat the name of the other account where we're trying to get it from? Stabilization?
stabilization.
We have a couple of stabilizations. Which
Remember
one's
a
this?
couple years ago, we voted stabilization accounts to set up a stabilization account to put mitigation money in, because there was no way to get mitigation money into to hold it aside because the Department of Revenue won't let you. So instead, we were able to adopt stabilization fund language, which basically says when and if we get funds in for this purpose, we can put them into a stabilization account. It holds them aside, and then we go to town meeting. We can appropriate that as an available fund. So that's the reason why the article states an available fund. So we'd be able to either use retained earnings in the water department or the stabilization fund if those monies materialize. I think the thought process is that probably isn't going to happen because it's too close to town meeting. So, but we wanted the ability to be able to use the stabilization fund if indeed the funds came in from the developer.
So in theory, we could make a motion to support moving it from water retained earnings, and if the motion at town meeting was stabilization account, re-voted.
Yes.
So maybe that makes most sense.
Yeah, I think that makes more
Versus
sense.
available
And
funds.
Just to be, water retained earnings, we have a well-established fund for. I worry that the term stabilization fund, because we've had several of them, is too vague.
Okay.
But it sounds like we don't need to even reference, if we're gonna do this, we're not even gonna reference the stabilization. Our vote will be for water retained instead of free cash.
Absolutely. It should not be free cash. And again, if you're just voting to approve the article, then, I mean, you could certainly say the available fund that's in the motion. But again, we're just, at this point, I'm not sure that which one it's going to be coming out of.
Yep. And Leah, we're actually voting to make a recommendation to the legislature. So we want to be much more specific in our language than just say the available funds. That's, I understand why it's in there for the warrant purposes, but we need to be much more specific about a recommendation. So the water retained makes tons of sense. Thank you.
Any other questions for Leah?
Good information. Thank you, Leah.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Leah,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Have a good night. Thank you for watching, yes.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Tell Nielsen you want.
Okay,
So we need to revote article,
So,
what is it, Will?
Beth
Article
made that
14.
motion, Article 14,
Yep.
with Andrew second. Maybe we want to make a new motion with water
Can't
retained.
hear you, Beth, you're muted again.
Sorry, I was muting so you don't hear background or static, especially when someone else is talking. Okay, I don't know if I need to rescind my motion or just make a new motion to override the previous motion and say, you know, I recommend that the town use water retained earnings to pay for this, you know, $550,000 for the purpose of this article.
Bradley second.
I think we just would want to include the 550,000,
She did
if
say
you're willing to
550.
take
Yeah,
that
she did.
amendment.
She did say 550.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Any further discussion?
Just let me write this down.
Okay, let's vote, please. Beth?
Lumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes?
Shafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
So that's 800.
Okay, moving
And,
on.
you know, if it turns out that the stabilization fund somehow miraculously is adequate in 2 weeks, then just, we'll revote it at town meeting floor. You,
Yes, if we want to.
yes.
Perfect.
Okay, moving on. 0 Ruggles Street, Article 18. May I have a motion, please?
I also wanted to talk about it.
Okay.
Um,
Would you like to make the motion, Tom? Before we discuss?
no, sorry, I'm not sure what my motion would be.
I can make a motion.
Go ahead, Will. Thank you.
I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 18 as written in the warrant to A, authorize the select board to acquire by the parcel of land located off Ruggles Street, B, to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow $334,000, and C, authorize the select board, the conservation and/or their designee to apply for, accept, and expend any provided funds.
Second?
Bradley second, but we have to, again, lock down the source for the recommendation, because we have 3 here.
Well, let's have the discussion for a
Yep.
moment and see what we got going.
That's the crux of my discussion too, Andrew, was the source of it. Where it's a very logical purchase, the land abutting the Avery property we just purchased. But I'm concerned that we might not get the 334,000 or any funds provided by the Commonwealth for public or private sources. I mean, it'd be great if we could get that, but that's a nice if. And the land has been for sale for 5 or 10 years now, and if we take no action, I'm curious to, I mean, no one has a crystal ball, but I might be one to predict that the land would continue to remain in its current state. In essence, the town might be spending $334,000 without need.
Except for you can't use it for passive recreation or to access the water tower or anything if you don't own it. You can't just decide I'm plotting in there one day because you don't own it. So, I mean, to me, with this many acres and eliminating any possibility of someone pulling one of these, I'm going to tear down a couple houses and make a huge loop driveway like they did on the street just down the corner from there. I think it's real short money for that much open space adjacent to another open
And we
space
could
place.
get, how much would we get, or any word on how much we'll get reimbursed from land grants or anything like that? I haven't heard any of those dollars thrown
The
around.
one grant they had was about 85,000, but I think it comes with some strings they weren't completely comfortable with, so I don't know if we're still doing that. They're going to talk to the, I think it's the Walk-Up Trust or one of the trusts, but it's all speculation.
Yeah.
I just think To have that much land for that money, I think is a reasonable deal.
Is this considered a borrow? The money seems too short for a borrow, so it seems like an RNA. Could
And,
be
well,
an
there is a
RNA.
raise and appropriate mentioned.
To raise an appropriate transfer
Yeah.
and/or borrow.
Yeah, 'cause it could be, it's sort of a combo, because
Yeah.
if the money's coming from different sources,
Well, and this
I
is-
can't imagine us actually going out and borrowing that little amount of money when you have free cash and other stuff sitting
So
around
is
that
our
would make sense.
recommendation RNA? And we hope that it pulls down, that the amount is reduced for other things? Or, I guess I'm coming back, our recommendation to the town is? This seems
Yeah.
more RNA for me, because it's a one-time thing, it's too small to be a capital thing, we wouldn't wanna carry it for 20 years, and
Right,
I mean, this seems like a great use of free cash.
right.
unfortunately, they didn't even mention that.
Well, that's available funds.
I guess it is, yeah.
I mean, available funds is very vague, because it's written so that they
Yeah.
can craft a warrant at the time of the thing.
Yeah.
So maybe they have more information, because this is what happened last time. I mean, ideally, we would be getting motions
Does she
Yeah.
have the, does she have the?
at the same time.
I'll just let her
We're gonna have a guest.
Thank you.
There's our town manager,
Uh-oh.
Christy Williams, ladies.
Uh-oh.
Breaking news.
Christie?
She came, she went.
She's
Yeah,
muted.
she's muted, she'll come up.
She's called Beth, but I should have moved.
That, was a first with Beth, I mean, that was
Leah.
Leah.
Yeah, that's a real,
That was the
hold a
first.
phone next to the speaker, a microphone.
2022.
Makes great TV.
Christie, thank you for joining us,
Sure.
and helping to resolve some of our confusion on funding.
Now I gotta put down that
Sources.
Christy and Leah were here.
Okay,
Note the
so,
times.
Andrew, you wanna ask your question again, where's this?
Thank you. Yeah, for the acquisition of Ruggles Street, at the moment, the warrant gives 3 different options. It gives the borrow, raise appropriate, and available funds.
Right.
I was wondering if you had any sense of what the motion's gonna be, or if there's a source we should be recommending.
Sure. So the motion will be for sale of real estate, and we're still waiting for Welcome Robinson to meet to see if they would pay half of the cost of the acquisition.
And the portion they wouldn't cover would come from sale of real estates?
Correct. So we would,
Okay.
so sale of real estate would cover half, and they would cover half.
So we could still make a motion to recommend they
Yeah.
take that, and if they come to town meeting and say they recommend they give half that, that's fine.
And sale of real
Sure,
estate
that-
has 334 knocking around, right?
Yeah, it had
334,000.
about $1.5 million,
Yes.
I think.
She's
she said.
smiling.
Yes,
Why
it
are you
does.
smiling, Christie?
I mean, yes, that's yes. So it would be
Okay.
able to cover the full amount if Welcome Robinson chooses not to cover any of it, but they haven't met yet. So I think they're trying to meet next week. So we're just waiting for them to meet.
That's perfect. Thank you,
Make the
Christie.
motions.
And I don't know if somebody
Yeah.
else has questions.
So I guess we have to remember to ask for that or something. Yeah. Okay, so let's see, no one made a
Do
motion?
we have a motion on this?
Oh, I think I did.
You
but
did
I
make a
made it
motion.
wrong, so I will withdraw
Yeah.
that motion and make a motion as suggested before, but for B, the fund would be transferred from sale of real estate account, $334,000.
Since you're writing the
Is there a
minutes, I can
second?
second that, yeah.
Thank you,
I know
Andrew.
you'll get it right.
Any further discussion? Let's go to a vote. Beth? Hello, Beth?
Beth muted herself because
Sorry,
Christie was
Lundberg,
here.
yes.
Ford, no.
Bradley, yes?
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
Okay, that's 800.
7-1.
No.
We got a
7-1.
vote.
Oh, sorry, I missed Melanie.
7-1.
7-1.
7-1-0.
It's intentional, but I got Gene counting, so he would have told me.
The next
Do
article
we need
is,
Christie for anything else? Like,
I know,
while we're
Christie,
having her for
do you,
sources.
would you like to stay with us, just in the event we do need you
Oh,
for
no, let her off
an
the hook.
explanation?
Let her off the
You
hook.
have nothing better to do this evening?
Can't we
outta
Nothing
here.
better to do, nothing.
Well, you're welcome to stay if you'd like, and if we need you, we'll reach out to you. How's that?
All right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll stay for a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
All right, because I think the next
Next
one has a
article is,
similar
Is the,
question. Is this actually
Treatment.
wastewater, actually a borrow?
it's gonna be, I think, yeah, Chrissy, is it gonna be a borrow? You know,
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a borrow.
okay.
Okay,
And the
so,
As a
Wastewater
reminder,
capital.
so the wastewater treatment plan is, it's, Westborough does the full borrow, but then it's, funded by, Westborough, Shrewsbury, and then a portion of it is funded by Hopkinton. But Westborough takes the lead on the full borrow, and then it's paid through debt service by the ratepayers.
yeah, they came to our last meeting and
Yeah.
talked.
Well, we had a good briefing, and as you know,
You want to make?
some of us took a tour.
I don't have it in front of me.
But, you know, it's helpful, just as an aside, when we have these discussions and we're asked to make a vote, would really be helpful to have the funding source available ahead of time. I understand there are other committees that have to be involved, but it would certainly cut down on the confusion we get into.
So
So-
I've heard that from you all before, and we try really hard to do that. But obviously, I know Leah jumped on to talk about PFAS. That one's pretty complicated, which is why it's an available fund. Zero Ruggles, same thing. We're still we couldn't designate specifically walk-up because they haven't met yet. But these articles are written by town council, so bond council, and so they specify, you know, all of the sources. But you know, in the
They leave
future,
their
we can
options open.
be clear that it's a borrow. We just wouldn't change the wording of the article, but we could certainly give you that heads up.
Okay, thank you.
And authorization for borrow also raises the bar to a 2/3 vote as well, so that's probably what you want to recommend, because everything else is easier or something like that.
And
I'll make a motion.
all right, please do, Rod.
As the liaison to the wastewater treatment plant, I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 20 to borrow $4,250,000 for undertaking capital repairs, improvements, and engineering services to the Westborough wastewater treatment plant. In addition to the amount previously voted under Article 12 of the May 15, 2021 annual town meeting as written in the warrant.
And the total amount is going to be
$4,250,000.
Eight.
Oh,
$8
I'm sorry.
million.
8.25 now.
million.
Bradley second.
We have a second. Discussion? Okay, we need to also incorporate the cost of capital into this. And, because it's gonna be a borrow, so the total cost of the project will be the 8.25 million plus the cost of capital, cost of the borrow.
I don't,
Just so that
do they borrow over 20 years?
it will be a borrow. I don't know whether it'll be 20 years, but there will be an additional cost to the project. Obviously, the ratepayers are going to absorb some of this in Westborough and Shrewsbury and Hopkinton, so.
Don't,
I
Just
thought
so
we
we-
were only 35% of it at the end of the day.
You have
We own about
38%
Yeah,
actually.
40
Yeah.
as a round number.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
We're only borrowing half of this ourselves, really. Yeah. Effective.
The only
Chrissy,
reason-
does that,
Go ahead.
is there any kind of effect on we're borrowing a bigger number, but does that affect like how much we can borrow? Because we do the borrowing for the 3 towns. Like, as a homeowner, that would affect you because you can't have so many mortgages, right? But maybe a town so big, this is small peanuts or something.
I don't think that we're running a risk by moving forward with this article as a
No,
borrow.
I don't think it's a risk. I'm just sort of curious.
my only comment is, and I'm still confused about how the rates get set, but I think as soon as the selectmen, whoever sets the rates, have the ability to do that, that they should give the ratepayers some warning that this is coming.
Yeah, so the finance director in coordination with the DPW set the rates, so.
Because it's, the sewer rate includes wastewater plus sewer. All the town sewers plus the wastewater plant. That's what we've.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on this article? Shall we move to a vote, please?
Bloomberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
800.
Moving on to Article 22, establish a new town seal. I would like to make a motion, please.
You want to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion on this, since I was the one that asked that we discuss it. I move that the AFC recommend that the town meeting listen to arguments presented and vote what they believe is in the best interest of the town.
You're sort of passing the buck on this.
Pardon?
You're saying we're not taking a position.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's the same position we took with respect to Columbus versus Indigenous Peoples' Day.
I think it's
We could,
different.
I need to get, I've made a motion, we need a second before we go to discussion. If there's no second, then the motion will not pass, or will not hold, whatever the proper. So, okay, let's
I'll
move
take-
on. Is there another motion on this article?
I move we recommend the town votes in favor of Article 22 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, so I think, just to follow up on your point, Mike, I think it's a little different than Indigenous Peoples / Columbus Day in that my understanding of that article was it was merely a recommendation and total non-binding. So in my opinion, it was an opinion poll. And in that case, we got to vote at town meeting our opinion anyway, and we don't, I don't feel that we need to influence opinion polls. I think in this case, it actually does have a tangible effect because the town seal changes, and it's a binding action, and that as a committee, you know,
It's real cost.
our opinion has some matter of, and we had people in to talk about it, and I just don't think it's as much of a pure lightning rod, if you will.
Well,
So I'm comfortable with voting, and I think if you don't want to vote, you have the option of abstaining.
Gene?
I agree with Walt. I think it's important that we vote on this. I think, you know, to the extent that it may be controversial, is at least somewhat because people don't have the background on why this is coming up or all the information. We've had the opportunity as a committee to get that information and have more information. I think it's important for us to make a recommendation.
And actually, if this committee was split, I think the town will be split on this issue too. So I don't think that's a big, I don't see that as a big issue.
The one
Andrew?
thought in support of Mike's perspective is that this vote 22, voting on 22 is really gonna be dependent upon what's read in 21. Because 21 is read the report. Once everybody reads the report, then people will potentially have new opinions.
Well, we
So-
read the report.
Was this one we've already seen?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm in favor of that, okay.
So,
I mean, they came, they gave their report, but that's the report they're gonna give to town
Were you
meeting.
at that meeting?
I mean, not a bad.
And they distributed the report in a written form as well
Okay, so,
to us.
thank you.
so my opinion is this is purely a political request, based on political agenda, based on the divisive nature of the subject matter. And I believe, after reading their report, that the article, that the statistical information gathered was a flawed process and it was biased. And that when I look at that number, and I've said it before, and I will say it again, a response of 457 persons, and we don't know who responded to that, in a town of 21,000 residents is statistically negligible, number one. Number two, it also says to me that there is a great ambivalence about this article. However, my key concern is that this article was brought to fruition through a process which was politically motivated. I do not believe the Finance Committee should interject itself to make a recommendation to the town on an article that I believe was politically motivated. If, in fact, the town approves this article, then we will have an opportunity to look at this proposal from a financial perspective, because the plan is to go forward with the design of a new article, and that will have a cost to it. That's my only objection to this. So that's my argument. Take it for what it's worth. I believe this kind of situation should be left to the collective will of the town without a recommendation of this committee. Period. Full stop. So that's my point. We have an article. We have a motion. Yeah.
Okay. I'm in favor of this article. I think people will get a chance to vote, whether you didn't like, you'll have the town meeting vote on this. I never liked the original seal, and I do like the original seal much better. And so, they're 1913. And,
That's because you thought it was a sled. The
right.
current one.
Exactly.
Just kidding, you, Walt.
It is. And so, and the fact that we still have that seal, I'm perfectly happy in going back to that. And so I don't mind recommending that.
Yeah, that's fine. Any other discussion? Melanie?
You know, I completely agree with your point of view.
Who are you talking to?
You, Mike, what you had to say. But I do think voting on it is needed. It's a recommendation. Nobody's probably even looking at what we say. So, but I'm just thinking that, well, I mean, I'm just telling the truth. I think that in the end, it could have a monetary impact. If you have to go around and change letterhead, if you have to change, you know, the seal at the front of the building, there's one across the street, I think, that's in, I mean, things, there is gonna be a cost associated with this. Do I think it's a crap reason? But, you know, I just don't think this is the way a town should spend their money.
Gene?
You know, you mentioned you don't like it because it's came up for political reasons. I mean, all of these warrants are for political reasons. This one came up because there's a group of people who feel that a part of our seal represents hate. That's not an opinion, that's what they feel. The committee's gone out and they've, you know, done research and found that it's not just people in our town, it's people across the country who agree that that symbol represents something. Doesn't mean anything about Eli Whitney, doesn't mean anything about the invention, but they've now brought it to our attention that our seal has a symbol that at least some of our residents feel represents hate. You know, it could cost us something to go back to the original seal. What they've proposed in Article 22 will not.
No, it won't. To go back to the original seal, we have
Which
the
is
seal.
which is what we're talking about now. We're talking about Article 22. So for that reason, I support this article. I mean, you know, this seems like a no-brainer to me.
To me, it's not, but that's okay. We're entitled to our opinions. Yeah, Andrew?
Just to reframe part of what was said without taking a stand on for or against the article, but 450 people out of a town of 200, or out of a town of 21,000, was framed as a very modest contribution for, given the size of the town. But the other context would be fully twice as many people voted for this as will show up at town meeting to be able to vote on this article.
Excuse me, there's a difference between taking a survey online
Yep.
and,
Well, I'm not disagreeing with
Making
you.
a
I'm making a
physical-
statistical
let me-
statement.
well, I understand that, and they drew that same.
Yep.
When they presented this to us, that question was asked, and they drew that same perspective, that we had twice as many than normally shows up at a town meeting. The difference is that taking a survey is totally different from making the physical effort to come to a town meeting, whatever that effort takes to vote. So it's easy to sit behind your computer and hit a few keys and vote. It may not be so easy for a lot of people to physically present themselves to the town meeting. So you're comparing, I believe, and
Yeah.
again, this is me, apples and oranges, okay? Survey on a computer versus physical effort to show up at a town meeting. But, be that as it may,
So you're saying I'm comparing something, but you're actually looking at the wrong thing that I'm comparing. I'm just comparing the number. I didn't say anything about the effort. I didn't say anything about the goal. In fact, I explicitly said not to take a stand one way or the other on the article, only to say that is literally twice as many people. That's an irrefutable number. I mean, that's, you can put anything behind it. That's just a number.
I don't wanna get
Sure,
into an argument
sure.
about 400 versus 200, other than I'm trying to contextualize it,
Oh, of course.
okay? And again, whatever the committee votes, the committee votes, whatever I gave my opinion, and
Sure.
that's what I gave. So, let's take a vote unless there are further comments.
I'll just make one final comment. So I think we're going from a controversial town seal to a non-controversial seal that we can all be proud of, and I would support the article.
Okay, all right, let's move forward. Beth?
Do we actually have a motion on the floor then?
Yeah,
Yes, we do.
I
All made a
move
motion.
to approve, recommend the town meeting votes in favor as written in the warrant.
Okay. I did have one other comment, is that this will have a cost, and that eventually this town seal will have to be placed on things, and that will have a cost. But,
In fact, Beth, if the town votes for this article, there is no cost to the town, because the seal, the official seal of the town, already exists.
gotcha. But we have to put it on things.
If you want to, there's no requirement to use the seal for anything but when Wendy stamps things. And we probably want it on letterhead, but I don't think we pre-print
Don't
much
have to.
letterhead. I suspect it comes out of the printer.
It's not
Okay.
inside of
That's good to know.
It could be on the side of trucks, but there's no
No
reason,
requirement.
there's nothing in this article that makes you take the old seal off all the trucks, or all the police cars, or all the fire trucks.
I know, but then, I guess that's my confusion.
In fact,
It seems like a waste of time and a waste of
Well,
money.
what the group
You're still
recommended,
gonna ride around in your police, or still gonna have the patch on, and your fire is still
what they
gonna have-
recommend is as you replace stuff,
Right, you put
you-
the new on.
you put the new one on, so then
The
it
new-
will eventually go away.
The new fire truck will have
And
that
I
new town seal.
suspect some of these things, might be $100 worth of decals or something, I don't know.
Let's understand what a seal is. A seal is the imprimatur of an organization, in this case, the town of Westborough, that demonstrates its authority to do certain things, so that when that seal is placed on a document, let's say a wedding license, a marriage license, that indicates that the town has that authority to issue that license.
It authenticates it, yeah.
So, other than that, that's the purpose of a seal. The fact that it appears on our vehicles and our shoulder patches of our police and fire, however it appears, has nothing to do with it. That's purely because we wish it to be so.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, thank you. for that clarification.
Okay.
Blumberg, yes.
Board, no.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes?
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes?
Already abstain.
Abstain, okay, perfect. Okay, so I think I have 6-1-1.
Okay.
Got that, Gene?
Yep, that's what I got.
All right.
Moving on,
I'd like to take a stab at this one.
go ahead.
My recommendation is, this one, we actually wait for town meeting, because if the previous article passes, then this one won't be done. And if it doesn't pass, then we could decide whether or not we're in favor of this one. But,
So you want to make a motion to that effect?
okay, well, do we have to? It's not really a motion, it's just not making a motion.
It's a discussion,
But-
yeah.
Yeah.
that's
Sort
a
of like
note
the
we
other
can
one,
put-
that we wait till town meeting floor
Yeah, that's a
vote
note we
this
So
can
one.
we can
Put it
basically pass over this one until town meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Makes
do
sense
that.
to people, or if people would rather vote
I mean,
in
the-
favor of this. I just find it hard to vote in favor of this, because I prefer the first one, because this is gonna cost money, and this is gonna be complicated and a whole process, and I think the other one is fine, so, but I might, if I'm giving a choice of 22 fails, but 23, I might vote in favor of it. So, I don't know. I would like to have the context of whether or not we're gonna vote. So if we put in the booklet, we will vote at the floor at town meeting, I think.
We can do
Is
that.
This warrant is looking like a choose your own mystery, you know, if you get
I
here to choose this.
I am
and
not
over here-
happy with this warrant at all. You know, it's, we are being asked to make recommendations with insufficient information on a number of the articles. And I know Christie has heard that, and I'm gonna keep saying it until somebody else hears it too.
So I guess, so
All right,
that's
are we
my
good with
philosophy,
Article?
unless somebody else wants to make a motion.
Okay, we'll wait till it gets to the town floor.
Right.
See what
If it
happens.
gets there.
If it
I guess,
gets there.
yeah.
Article,
Just-
yes, Gene.
Should we discuss it more so that we have time at town meeting to vote it? I mean, is everybody prepared to vote on the,
I think, well, okay, I mean, I could discuss it, I think.
I'm just asking, I mean, you
To
know.
me, it's not as good as Plan A, it's a Plan B that's not as good. I probably, for the reasons you outlined, I probably would vote in favor of changing it still, but I think that someone, namely a committee, came up with a very wise suggestion in Plan A, so I'm hoping we don't get to Plan B.
No, I
But if Plan
understand that,
B
I just,
comes up,
if Plan A gets voted down and they move to Plan B, is everyone prepared to vote? I assume there's not gonna be a ton of time for discussion at town meeting amongst us, so
You're
I'm just
hoping.
asking.
I think there
Yeah,
could
I'm
be
hoping.
hours.
I was gonna
I'm
say,
hoping.
I think we'll have plenty of time while it's being discussed.
All right, look, we could do this one two ways. We can either talk about it this evening, or you can take the time between now and town meeting to read through what's being proposed, to consider, and then when we come to having, if we have to make a decision on the town meeting floor, our positions will be established, I would think.
We'll also hear what the
The other
proponents
folks
and
have to say.
opponents say
Yes.
about it too at
We'll
that
have more
time.
information.
And we could decide just not to vote and just vote when they vote or something.
Okay. All right, so no further discussion. We're moving to the next article.
Plastic.
Article 29, Plastic Reduction Bylaw.
I move to recommend the town vote to approve Article 29 as written.
Okay, that's
Is there a
Brad.
second?
I'll second.
Okay, there is a second. Discussion.
So,
I think it's still poorly written. I think it needs to be thought through really carefully. I would be really embarrassed if it got rejected by the state again. There's a lot of
Hold on.
little details in it, like, you know, will the grocery store be allowed to use thin
They
film
don't-
plastic
the
to cover
warrant.
meat? Or will they have to come up with a new container? This was pretty, I mean, I know that the Board of Health wanted
to pass the buck originally back to the select board and the AFC, and they were kind of told, no, it really has to come from them, they were charged with it, and I don't think they spent enough time cleaning it up, and so some of the original errors are still in it.
That's interesting. See, I was in favor of this because we had asked it to go back to the Board of Health and go through a scrubbing and be cleaned up, and that's what it appears to me from my reading, that it isn't as, and it eliminated the part that was rejected, and it was much cleaner. But the Board of Health is actually gonna propose this, they're the proponents. So are you, did they vote in favor of it?
They did, but they did it in less than ideal situation. I believe they did it on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, like they had to call the meeting, and they had to get it done in time to present it to the select board, and their original plan had been to brush it off to the select board and the AFC.
So why didn't they just wait till the spring town meeting? I thought, actually, I didn't think this was coming back, because it hadn't happened, and I thought that they're, okay,
They
so.
were charged to bring it back to this meeting, and, you know, they have enough on their plate that they didn't, I mean, I'm maybe speaking out of turn here, but I don't think that they wanted to put there's a lot of issues with this if you read it. And they're a little more.
Okay, can you point to some actual issues?
Sure.
Because
Okay, so like one of them is the issue of Section 3, Use and Regulations, 3A and 3C. It's very hard to tell what the difference is going on there. So 3C will allow thin film plastic bags for produce and meat and things. That's the ones that are hanging next to them. But thin film used plastic bags shall not be distributed, used, or sold for checkout or any other purposes at a retail store or grocery store. So one of the things that the Board of Health noted was, you know, the cake where you might buy a slice of cake in a clear plastic container, not allowed. There's a lot of expenses to this also that are being passed to the businesses that don't know that they're being passed to the businesses, which will eventually be passed to the consumers.
yeah, but Beth, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
The only changes are the highlighted items. So A, B, and C are as exist.
But then,
So they're changing it, they're adding D. So A, B, and C are not something we're actually voting on.
I just think it's really, well, I thought the
No,
original
we're
was.
voting on the entire article.
Against it as written.
We-
and-
Yeah, but this is already, if we vote this no, A, B, and C are still in existence. This is a bylaw. So the changes to the bylaw, my understanding is either highlighted or crossed out. Highlighted is new, crossed out is axed. So anything that's not highlighted is already the existing article.
Town manager, can you help us out here?
Please, Ms. Williams.
No, you're correct, that the only changes are the bold and straight throughs.
Okay.
Okay.
So there was the original plastic bag bylaw that was written, I think, in 2017, and then that was amended at the last town meeting to change the bylaw to make businesses that were giving bags had to be, I think, paper or biodegradable, I think is what it says. And then this would reduce the use of plastic for containers. So grocery stores or retail stores must use biodegradable material for dine-out services when such an alternative exists. So that D is new.
Okay.
But that's, I think what Beth was saying, and I agree with her, there's a huge cost to grocery stores and retail stores when you have to go to these biodegradable materials.
But
And
that's
there's
what
such-
we should be doing, because we shouldn't be
No, but
putting
there's
out this
such a
plastic
slim
crap
margin.
and
There's such a
styrofoam.
change in the restaurant industry from COVID. We can all agree on
That's-
that.
That's fine. They seem to be doing really well in Westborough.
Well,
To be frank, the restaurants are pretty full in town.
but their margins are cut when you use things like this, and
Good.
that's how they
I
stay
don't
in
want them
business.
filling up my world with styrofoam.
Well, then don't
So-
order out.
No, I would rather they
Go in the
use,
restaurant and eat.
I would
You're
rather
gonna
they
make more
use
profit off
stuff
your
that's
beverage
takeout.
anyway.
There you go.
Well, that is where the profit is, but I'm just saying, some of the changes, I get what Beth is saying, that some of the changes are penalizing to businesses and they're struggling enough.
It's fine. That's a good
Any
point.
other comments about this? We prepared to vote? Beth?
Lumbert, no.
Ford, no.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Already no.
Okay, we got 3 no's. It means we must have 5 yeses. 5, 3, 0.
5, yep.
Okay. Christie,
Thank
we're about to move on to Article 30.
you. Might want to
As
run
the-
away.
Yeah, we might as well run away. As,
This is your chance.
do you know if the school committee this evening made or proposed a new article?
A new motion. No, same
I
article.
know that they're discussing the motion.
Pardon?
I know they're discussing the motion.
Still?
Well, she's not watching them, she's
No,
watching
no, no,
us.
no, no. No, I have a feeling she knows what's going on.
I don't.
Don't deny that, Kristen.
I know that at the select board meeting, there was a discussion about, I believe that the motion is gonna be different than the article, so, just based on the recommendation of the select board and what I understand to have been the conversation at the advisory finance committee.
So do you believe we will have a recommended article for Monday, by any chance?
Yeah, I believe that the school committee is gonna make a decision tonight about their preferred motion.
Okay.
That's what,
That-
well, that's what
a
they
chance-
left us with,
that
and it was
gives you a
just,
chance to
yeah,
look
I
at
think
it
we should
Monday.
just vote it
I'm
Monday.
not sure that they've had a meeting since they last.
They started at 6 today.
Yeah.
So they might have the motion now, but
Yeah.
we don't know what it is.
Well, I'll check in with the chairman of the committee tomorrow, chairperson of the committee tomorrow, see what the motion is. The other question I had, and maybe it's pending the motion, but I think, and this is for the board, I think it would be beneficial if we had Fred Leonardo be with us on Monday to walk us through the process and the issues that occur when certain thresholds are met with respect to the ADA requirements. Hearing it as a layperson, it can be a little confusing, and I think Fred has already made some information known to the select board prior to tonight's meeting of the school committee to reconsider that article. And I think, having had a conversation with Fred today, if he's available, it would be a good thing to have him spend some time with us on Monday. It is a remote meeting, and, you know, essentially the only thing on that agenda is to review the message and the balance of the book, the R&R book, so we have some time to get the benefit of his knowledge before we make a decision on that.
So, yeah, the only ones that we haven't voted that we might still vote before town meeting are number 8, the police budget, and this one, so it's a reasonable warrant, so
Christie?
your suggestion makes some sense.
Yeah. Christie?
We'll have a number for you for your next meeting.
I'm sorry?
We'll have a number for you in the police article.
You will on
By
Monday?
Oh, perfect, all right.
Thank you. All right, so that will be, I will amend the agenda accordingly, and the police department article and the Article 30 will be on the agenda.
Yeah, we don't have to call it, can't we? I mean, it could be vague that we're voting on articles, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The
we don't
agenda?
have, I mean, you'd have to put Fred on the agenda per se, but do you have to specifically say which articles we're voting, or just
No, we
we're
just change
voting
the
on the
agenda.
articles? Yeah.
We could put the, I don't care, it's not,
Yeah.
it's a minor thing.
Okay.
Okay,
Fred did issue a memo related to this, so I don't know if your committee has received it, or
we
I
have
know-
not seen any memo from,
No, we had,
he spoke to me about that today.
okay, his memo was incorporated into the superintendent's memo, as a link, but we could share it with you
Hang on a
separately.
minute.
yeah, we did have it in that link.
Yeah,
It's one of the links in Amber's.
Oh, correct, yes.
Okay.
It may still be confusing, however.
But we
Oh,
could,
yeah, no, I wasn't, I just meant that in advance you might, if you
Okay.
hadn't
should
gotten the
read
memo.
that.
you
So
would
we'll go
see it.
back and read that, and then still have Fred come in if he's available to. I know it's their holiday, and I apologize, but unavoidable circumstances, since we're up against the time crunch to get the R&R done.
is it also possible then you would send out to the committee the new motion ahead of the meeting? When you know it?
The new article, you mean?
Well, it's the same article because it's already in the warrant,
No.
but I mean the new motion.
proposed motion.
From the school committee?
Yeah,
Yes, if I have it, I will send it out.
okay. Because if we have that ahead of time, we can
Yeah.
think about that.
Yeah.
My only request would be that we just establish how the assessment was done for the Hastings School, what was used as comparables.
You mean a full market value assessment?
However, it's being evaluated or needs to be evaluated as it relates to the percentage.
Who, we don't have
I would have to
we don't
call
have a
the-
liaison to the assessor. do
We
we?
can call the assessor. I think that would be reasonable. Any other questions?
I-
Beth,
I think-
question?
I think.
Christine,
Chris
you have a
wants to say
question?
something.
Who is that? Please, Christine.
Maybe Chris should join the AFC.
Just moving town, small detail.
Christy, you have a question or comment?
I was just gonna say that, in terms of the question, I think the superintendent said that, I don't think they use the assessor's number, correct?
All I
Isn't there-
saw was the 20.3, 20.4, whatever that number is, assessment, and I don't know where that number came from.
Okay, so I can help get that information for you.
That would be
Thank you.
helpful, thank you
Awesome.
very much. And I don't have to bother Jonathan tomorrow.
Yeah, I think she said something about coming through the finance person at the school, but I don't know where she got her data.
I don't know.
she said town hall.
Well,
It's
Christy's
confusing.
gonna get us
Christie will get to
the
the bottom.
information.
So I think
Okay,
that's it for
anything
voting.
else? Any other? Okay, as far as any liaison reports?
School
None?
committee's meeting tonight, we missed it.
What's that?
The school committee is meeting tonight and we missed it.
We missed it, we had a conflict.
It's available on Westborough TV.
We had a conflict. As far as future agendas, Monday, fully remote. Town meeting, there is a town meeting, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, we start on Monday, October 17th. And based on what I've read from the town moderator, there is a distinct possibility we will be continuing that meeting on Tuesday evening.
What time?
I think we start at, it's scheduled for 7, Christie? 7, yeah, we'll start, and the auditorium will be the location at the high school for, everybody I think knows that. Okay?
Can I do just a quick
Yep.
summary here or something? So Articles 8 and 30, we intend on discussing, possibly voting on Monday. Article 23, we're going to wait for town floor. Article 16, we're going to wait for town floor. Was there any others?
Nope, not
I
by
don't think
Mike,
so.
no.
Okay.
We're good. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
Is that, Melanie,
Beth?
did you make the motion?
Lundberg, yes?
Board, yes.
Bradley, yes?
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes?
Shafford, yes.
Already, yes.
8:00.
Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate your time. Christie, thank you again.
Thanks